Before the break, I mentioned a medical crisis is inevitable, and it certainly is. But if you are prepared and you have an expert in your corner, then guess what? The road is much easier. With us now is Michelle Butler of Tupper Butler Attorneys. First of all, there's a couple of things that separate you, Michelle. Thank you for coming back on the show. Welcome in.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what does separate you. And first of all, a Georgetown law degree does not hurt. That's a very prestigious school.
Thank you.
You've also been a litigator in D.C. for years. But you had something very personal that I really think separates you from others because you understand the emotional side, not just the business side. Talk a little bit about your experience.
Well, I had been a litigator in D.C. and then moved back here to my hometown to litigate with my young family when my father, who lived alone, fell and injured his spinal cord in a way that left him a quadriplegic. So even though I had litigated huge cases with high risk, millions of dollars at stake, this was a path that we had no idea how to follow. I had to learn a great deal, both as being responsible for his care, advocating for him medically, and how to confront the high finances that we would need to be able to provide for him.
So you've got a very top-notch, quality, respected attorney, and you have someone who's actually been through this. So call today. This is something, and you said this, and it's correct. It's a gift for your family. Because when something like this happens, there's a lot of emotions and grief, and it can affect your decision-making. Talk about that, a gift for your family. What do you mean by that?
Well, by gift, I mean that this is among the most difficult conversations a family can have. Unfortunately, the one thing that we're guaranteed is that we will not be here forever. When my father had his accident, we had no idea what he wanted, what kind of state his finances would allow for him to continue with the care level that he needed. My brother and I, thankfully, were on the same page, but most conflict in families comes not at the time of will or other post-death event, but in the hospital room when trying to decide what mom or dad would want. And so we were fortunate enough to be on the same page in how to proceed, but it was all with this question of whether we were doing the right thing and what he wanted to do, and it prevented me from just being able to be his daughter.
Talk to us a little bit about your law firm. It's not the typical business model. This is totally different. I would imagine that a lot of it has to do with the fact that you've experienced this, and it is more than just a legal thing for you, legal issues.
Yes, this became my passion. I struggled with how to navigate my father's care and legal protections. I can tell you that the contrast between the time of his accident and the time that he passed, remarkable in that we had a plan in place and no longer carried the second guessing with us as we had to say goodbye. I take that into my practice now in order to help families truly find a way to talk about these things and be available to them at a time that is convenient for them. As someone who has small children and a working mom with my father in the hospital, I know how hard it can be to schedule time in someone else's office during business hours. So my model is to come to you where you are at a time most convenient, whether that's a home or my office or a facility, to take the anxiety away as much as I possibly can. We have a few meetings. I ask pertinent questions, guide you through various scenarios that many people are not able to think through, and then the protections are put into place that are specific to your own priorities.
As I've mentioned again and again, and it's obvious, you know, we're going to go through a medical crisis. So obviously, it's to your advantage to be proactive and call Michelle Butler today. I encourage you to do that because, yes, it's an uncomfortable call, it's an uncomfortable conversation. But if you do it and get ahead of it, it's all about peace of mind and putting people at ease, and that's what you're so good at. So how does the process start? If they call you today, what should they bring to the meeting? What kind of things do they need? Tell me a little bit about that.
I encourage people to call or schedule an appointment through my website where we can just have an initial discussion free of charge and outline what that person's priorities are and how I can help them We then move forward with just a handful of meetings where I equip you with tools to make decisions, distill the process down to be as efficient as possible, but where I'm also as available to you and I'm able to think through some of the harder questions. I help many adult children facilitate conversations with their parents. I also work with new parents who have young children they want to be sure to protect. So I am able to meet you wherever you are and help guide through this process until you have the documents and protections in place that benefit you.
I don't like to look for negatives here, but for those who do not get ahead of it, scenarios, not protecting their assets and things that may happen. Could you talk a little bit about that, Michelle?
Well, two things. One is that the time of an injury, for example, we certainly never anticipated my father becoming a quadriplegic. I've worked with families who have young adults who have had serious accidents, car accidents, other types of things that people simply cannot have forethought to fully contemplate. And so there's a state of crisis that needs to be addressed, and it's a very emotional time. By being proactive, it relieves you and the people that you most want to protect from having to make very difficult decisions in those moments of high anxiety and grief. It also enables you to be sure that the hard work you've done to earn money and have your assets in one place and save that for your family, I'm able to help protect those and avoid spending all of your money on long-term care needs or nursing home costs or other kinds of hidden costs that people think they simply have to pay for until they go broke, and that is just absolutely false.
So we've talked about it. It's a different role model. You have someone who's lived through this and knows about not only the financial challenges and the questions that you will have, but also the emotional side of it. You're grief-stricken, understandably so, and it's hard to make good decisions. Again, Tupper, Butler Law, Michelle Butler. I always enjoy talking to you. Very informative.
You too,
and it
John.
makes me realize we need to get ahead of this. Everyone does. Give them a call today. Let's put the information up on the screen before we go to break here. There we go. Different kind of law firm, certainly. I love the fact that you really care about people. The compassion comes across very, very well from an accomplished lawyer. We'll take a little break, and we'll be back on Wade 3 Listens Live.